7:02, and we're going to call to order the March 2nd Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. Melissa, you want to do roll call, please?
Certainly. Okay. Oh, I apologize. Okay. Yes, I would be happy to take roll. Committee member Knight.
He called and said he probably wouldn't be here.
Committee member Wheaton.
Present.
Committee member Harrington.
Here.
Committee member Lemire.
I'm here.
Committee member Moon.
Present.
Committee member Lawrence.
Here.
Committee member Barney. He's excused, he emailed. Committee member Castillo.
Here.
Committee member Rizzo.
Here.
Committee member Henshaw.
Here.
And Chair Reynolds.
Here. There are only 4 of us here. Do we want to forego the Pledge of Allegiance this meeting? Okay. We're going to forego the Pledge of Allegiance for this meeting. Do we have any public comment on non-agenda items, please? We have a lot of public here. Welcome. I'm assuming all of you have comments on agenda items. If not, I would ask you to speak up. Because we have so many folks on Zoom, I'm going to ask for the purpose of this meeting that you use your raised hand icon, please, in your Zoom program. And if the people in the auditorium could do that as well, it would be great, or wave really high and vigorously so I see. That'd be great. All right. And Melissa, you want to take the first topic, please?
Yes, absolutely. So tonight we'll be continuing our discussion of the transportation system plan and our update project. We began our discussion in December and January. We started out by looking at the 2014 transportation system plan as it's currently written. And we began looking at the town center plan, chapters 2.3 and 2.4, which go over the opportunity sites and the opportunity corridors. So we'll be continuing with that tonight. And before we get started on this update presentation, I'd like to update you that staff has narrowed the scope of the project a little bit from what I first told you in December and January. I started out with the scope very large, updating every section of the TSP. And we found as we were starting to work on it as staff that scope is quite large. And the main thing we really want to update right now is bringing the town center plan and the transportation system plan into concurrency with each other. And there is a lot of data that is very dated at this point. And right now, while we're still in our pandemic, it's not a great time for us to go out and get new data and have new studies at this time. So we'll want to postpone some of the update for the next round of updates. And I'll let our guest presenters tonight explain that a little bit further, but I wanted to kind of preface this because you'll find that the scope is narrowed a little bit from what I originally had told you. So for this update project, the city has hired Kittleson and Associates, their firm, to help us out with this update. So I'd like to introduce you to Matt Bell and Amy Griffiths. And so I will turn it over to you for the presentation, and I will start sharing the screen now. Or I'm sorry, Amy, were you going to be screen sharing today?
Either way works for us. Whatever's easier for you.
Okay, sure. Just one moment. Okay, Amy, you're a co-host now.
Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Great, then I'll hand it off to Matt Bell to start the meeting or the presentation.
So I'm not sure if I'm seeing your screen. I can see you, Amy. I may not. If everybody else can see it, though, that's okay. Oh, there it is. All right. So hello, everybody. I'm Matt Bell, and I'm with Kittleson and Associates. I'm just going to give a quick, pretty much just a really quick overview on the project, and I'm going to turn it over to Amy to really walk us through a lot of the details on things. So this is the first of 2, if not 3 meetings that we're envisioning for this project. And I know that Melissa's given you guys quite a bit of background and has told you about what it is we're trying to accomplish. So I'll try to break it down into what we're planning on doing for each meeting as I go along. So for this first meeting, we're really wanting to just sort of orientate folks towards the project, talk about what it is that we're hoping to accomplish. We are going to spend a little time talking about one of the memos that we shared about a week ago now, and get down into the weeds on things a little bit. But you know, as we go forward, we're going to get into the so this first early stages is really just looking at what's there today, what was done as part of the town center plan, what was done as part of the transportation system plan. Come to some agreement on those things before we move forward into really getting into the details on what is going to come out of this process. So with that, Amy, do you want to go to our slide 2? And I'm not sure what other folks are seeing, but I'm seeing corridor A.
Okay, I did not share the right screen. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. So I guess just by way of so the agenda for tonight, we're going to just give you a quick introduction to the project team, role of the Citizens Advisory Committee. We'll talk real high level about the project schedule and overview. And again, I'm going to turn it over to Amy to talk about the corridor site, opportunity corridors and sites. So next slide. So the project is really largely going to be guided by these three different groups. There we have the project management team that primarily consists of the city of Troutdale and the consultants. We do the day-to-day operations and create big decisions and recommendations along the way. We lean pretty heavily on the Citizens Advisory Committee to review the memos, provide input, provide guidance on policies, and just general input on how you'd like to see things within the community. Lastly, we will spend time with the Planning Commission and the City Council, as Planning Commission ultimately will approve and recommend adoption. City Council will be adopting. In addition to these groups, we've also established some contact with Multnomah County. As you'll see later on, a lot of these facilities will be Multnomah County, a lot of the opportunity corridors that we're going to talk about, as you're well aware, are Multnomah County facilities. So we'll want to make sure we're coordinating with them as well. Next slide. So just a couple of quick things as far as the expectations for the Citizens Advisory Committee. Some of these might be pretty obvious. Just attending these meetings, engaging with us, and asking questions. reviewing the memos if you can prior to the meetings, or providing feedback, providing some feedback, following up on those meetings as well is also very helpful. There we go. And then just as an icebreaker question, I understand we're going to be running a little bit short on time, just wanting to save quite a bit of time at the end for discussion, as well as to give you guys a chance to get to your other agenda items. So something we might come back to in the future is just what your interests are in transportation and in the Troutdale community in general, but we'll hopefully get to that as we get to know each other a little better. Next slide. So this really lays out the list of tasks and the schedule. So this first task is largely, again, taking a look at what's in the existing town center plan, what's in the transportation system plan, and trying to reconcile some of the potential discrepancies between those two plans. And so we've largely done that at this point. We've been through both documents. We've documented what we see as being some of these discrepancies in that first technical memo that you've seen. And we're right here at the first CAC meeting. Moving forward, again, we're hoping to establish some consensus on what those projects are going to be coming out of the town center plan, and ultimately updating or amending the transportation system plan. When we come up with that list, we're planning on meeting with you folks again to share that list with you before we get into the transportation system plan update. And what we have, the third CAC meeting, I mentioned we're having 2, if not 3 meetings with you folks, is we did scope and had envisioned meeting with the city council prior to our first meeting with planning commission and prior to the adoption hearing. And we're feeling at this time, although we haven't pinned down a particular time or date, I think that we would like to come back and share the same information with you guys a third time in some sort of a joint meeting between the Citizens Advisory Committee and City Council. And so lastly, that task is to present things to the Planning Commission, City Council, and hopefully seek adoption of the TSP amendment. So the overall task schedule list is relatively short, starting here in March and really going through the June or July timeframe. So it's a pretty quick project overall, with hopefully we provide enough time between things to get you guys, to keep you guys on task with the project. Next slide. So I mentioned this, and I'll probably mention this a couple times here, and as will Amy, is that our primary objective for this project is to amend the Troutdale Transportation System Plan to incorporate the Town Center Plan. I mentioned that we're evaluating the inconsistencies between these 2 planning documents, the Transportation System Plan, the Town Center Plan, and addressing those inconsistencies, adding projects into the Transportation System Plan. So one thing that we'll talk about again is that the Town Center Plan largely lays out what I would consider to be, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself, I'm sorry. Secondary project objective is incorporating recent regional planning initiatives. So Metro or Portland's Metropolitan Planning Organization has developed what they're calling these equity-focused areas, largely throughout the region, that represent a variety of different transportation, social, and just general disadvantaged communities. And we want to try to incorporate that work into the transportation system plan, particularly how we're going about organizing or prioritizing projects between what we call the master plan and the action plan. And we'll get into that here in a second. Lastly, we want to do our best to incorporate the electric vehicle charging information that is it's currently being developed, that the Oregon Department of Transportation and others are working to develop this statewide initiative for climate-friendly and equitable communities. So it's largely, this is one of those things that at this stage will largely be programmatic, policy-driven type stuff, but stuff that we want to make sure we're getting incorporated in the TSP. As Melissa mentioned, there are other things that we want to try to accomplish through this amendment. And while our focus is largely going to be on the town center plan, through these 2 primary and secondary objectives. There are a number of other opportunities when we have the plan open and we have the opportunity to make some updates. We are going to take advantage of that, but we'll be sharing that with you as we go along. Next slide. So a couple things that we're not expecting to do as part of this plan, again, stuff that Melissa was mentioning before, is we are really trying to stay focused on the town center and incorporating the town center plan, and really helping to define the plans, programs, projects, things that are going to help implementation of that plan. Next, we're not necessarily planning to do a lot of updates to the inventory of existing transportation facilities outside the town center. We do recognize that there have been some changes within the town center over the last few years and in other parts throughout the community. We're going to do our best to incorporate those changes into this, but we're not looking to do a full update of the inventory and existing conditions. Next, we're not doing additional data collection. As Melissa mentioned, it continues to, even though things are opening back up, traffic is certainly getting back to where it was before in a lot of ways. But things are generally still quite a bit lower on the vehicle front, on the pedestrian, bicycle, transit front. So we want to try to make sure that when we do go back and collect data, that we're doing it at a time that is most representative of how things are going to be going forward. Last, we're not doing any updates to the traffic operations and safety analyses. So again, something Melissa mentioned is that there are aspects of the transportation system plan that are older, even older than 2014, which is the current date of the TSP. The 2014 TSP did rely on the previous TSP, as well as a number of other more recent planning documents to build the foundation for the traffic operations and safety analyses. Some of those things go back as far as 2004, I think. They go back quite a ways. And so that data does need to be updated. We do need to look at operations again. We do need to look at safety again. That will most likely be something that would be part of a much more comprehensive update to the TSP. I might pause there for a second. Some people, I don't see any faces right now, but some people might have questions about this slide in particular. Any questions out there? Nobody's jumping in, so I'll just keep going here. Amy, next slide. So again, the town center plan. I understand you guys are becoming pretty familiar with this plan, but just a real quick overview of what is critical for us going forward is that this is a guiding document adopted in 2021. It is designed to help plan for the next 20 years. So it's a long range plan similar to the transportation system plan. It is looking at physical, social, economic growth within the town center and sort of establishing priorities for a variety of things. On top of that, it does identify development projects, investment opportunities on the 12 opportunity sites, the confluence site, and these 8 corridors to help achieve the vision of the town center. So a large focus, again, of what we're going to be doing going forward is based on these opportunity sites and these corridors. So again, I understand you're getting familiar with the transportation system plan, but just a quick review of that. It is a long-range plan adopted in 2014, but as I mentioned, some of the data in there precedes 2014 by quite a ways. It does provide goals, policies for development of the transportation system over time. It does provide an inventory of and evaluation of existing and projected future conditions. I believe it is a 2035 timeframe for this plan. It also identifies multimodal improvement projects needed to address the existing deficiencies' future needs, and separates these projects into what's called a master plan and an action plan. So the master plan is a list of basically all the gaps, all the deficiencies, all the needs that were identified throughout the transportation system planning process. It's a rather comprehensive list of potential improvements that far exceeds what is reasonably likely to be funded over that same time frame. The action plan is was an attempt for us to prioritize or prioritize projects from the master plan into a more financially constrained project list that could reasonably be funded. Something that we'll talk about a little bit more next time was the Tech Memo 1 does talk a little bit about how the action plan was developed, but something we'll talk about more next time is how we might be tweaking the factors that were used to essentially prioritize projects from the master plan into the action plan itself, largely based on these the equity stuff from the RTP and the climate friendly stuff from the state. Next slide. Actually, I'm sorry, Amy. One quick pause there. I have some notes here for myself on this slide as well. A couple things that is important to note, and I know you guys have heard this before, but I'll just reiterate it here, is that the projects that are identified, and again, I'll probably mention this at each one of our meetings, but projects identified in the TSP are not guaranteed to be complete. So each project, for the most part, will require further evaluation, design, and a dedicated funding source, among other things, before it gets implemented. So being in a plan doesn't mean that it's going to be doesn't mean that it's going to be built or constructed tomorrow, or even in the immediate future. Projects on Multnomah County facilities in particular require approval from and coordination with Multnomah County. So the last point that I want to make here is that, since I just spent a little time talking about the master plan and the action plan, is projects identified in the action plan do not limit the city or ODOT from advancing other projects in the larger master plan. So they might be in the action plan. That's sort of the focus for the city, maybe to illustrate like priorities for them, but it doesn't prevent them from advancing any other projects in the larger master plan. And there's a lot of reasons why you might want to do that. There may be a variety of different funding opportunities coming down the line. There might be a change in development patterns, changes in funding opportunities that are not necessarily known at this time that we'll want to take advantage of if the opportunity arises. So those are just a couple of caveats again that I'll probably put on each time we talk about what goes into the TSP. And just lastly, and I think I'm turning it over to Amy after this one, but just Tech Memo 1. So you guys have Tech Memo 1 at this point. It is a summary of information that is largely provided in the town center plan and the transportation system plan. It covers a little bit on existing conditions and future needs. It presents information largely on the 4 main travel modes that are presented in the TSP, that is the pet, bike, transit, and motor vehicle facilities services. It identifies discrepancies between the vision that is laid out in the town center plan and the projects in the TSP. And I'll just reiterate that point that the town center plan, in my mind, and to some extent, does lay out a vision for these opportunity sites and for these corridors. And what we need for the transportation system plan is just a little bit more specificity. We need to take that vision from the town center plan and turn it into projects that we can identify in the TSP. We can develop project costs. We can make assumptions about right-of-way needs. We can again incorporate it into the different master plan, action plan, and add it to a map. So again, I wanted to take that vision and put it into the plan. Last, it identifies potential next steps for addressing these discrepancies for each of the opportunity sites and corridors. So Amy's going to talk now about the series of tables that are a little less than halfway through the memo, which is a large focus of what we've tried to accomplish so far, just identifying those discrepancies, identifying potential next step for how to address those discrepancies. So with that, if anybody doesn't have any questions, I might turn it over to Amy to take it away.
Looks like David Wheaton might have a question.
Thank you. Matt, you talked about incorporating or mentioned that some of the projects may or may not get built depending on their funding and other reasons. Does your plan outline what I would call key projects that would have to happen first for all the others to follow? Is there any kind of priority given to any of those in your planning process?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's when we're trying to look back on 2014 and think about how some of these projects were organized between the master plan and the action plan. I think that's one of the things that is considered there is how is this particular project connected to the larger system? Is it providing a connection to a particular place, to like a to the town center, to a school, a park, or what have you? There are also projects that we know need to be done at a certain time period. So for example, one of the projects that I know Amy will mention here in a moment, but is that there's a traffic signal that has been in the works at Buxton and historic Columbia River Highway. So that's a project that will have a very specific, it was in the previous transportation system plans and the current transportation system plan. It'll likely stay there, just recognizing that over time, as volumes increase in the downtown and up and down Buxton, that signal will become warranted. So it's based on a very specific set of warrants, thresholds, things that as growth occurs, that particular one will be needed. It's a similar thing for different street connections where we might want to like, yeah, some of the different street connections and even including those that are in the town center plan. I don't know if I answered your question exactly, but does that get to what you're asking?
Well, sort of, yes, but it had to do with, in my head with budgeting, where it gives city guidance on making sure that a particular project is done in a certain order, or else there's no reason to continue 12 or so other ones because they depend on the first one.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I can't think of any of those off the top of my head. I think a lot of maybe with the exception of the new street connections and some just general new connectivity that's listed in both the plan as well as the town center plan, like those types of connections open up opportunities to develop certain properties around town. And certainly they would need to happen either in advance or in conjunction with some of that. So some of the specific opportunity sites have a lot of those things built into them. So those things are more related. But I think Troutdale being largely, and I don't want to be held to this, but being largely developed, like having a street network that's been largely built out. I don't know that I can think of a lot of places where one thing is sort of contingent on another, just more of things being contingent on, or like development being contingent on improvements to the transportation system and vice versa. So land use and transportation, the relationship there being dependent on each other.
Well, I can think of several, but let me give you one instance. Some of the wordage that I was reading in some of the text earlier was talking about the possibility of multimodal or bikes and walking to places or ferrying people from a parking area to another place, which would reduce car usage. Then that would say that the parking facility would have to be identified and built first, or none of the rest of that can happen.
Yeah, no, I understand. I absolutely understand what you're saying. And certainly you would need things like sidewalk connections, crosswalks, and other things that connect the parking areas to the destinations. So yeah, again, in my mind, and maybe I'm just thinking about it just a little differently, is again, sort of the land development how the land development relates to the transportation system. And I would add parking in there as well. Great, good question. I'll try to think of a better answer for you the next time we meet. Amy, you want to take it away?
Great, thanks, Matt. And we do have a fair number of opportunity sites and corridors, 12 corridors and 8 sites. And so I think I'm going to propose we do questions in the chat or raise hand if if anyone wants to stop and talk more about a particular location. And we have sorted the corridors and sites in the town center plan into kind of 3 different categories for how they relate to the transportation system plan. The first category is consistent, and as you'll see in the following slides, the ones with blue titles are the ones that we've established are consistent, and that means that the projects that are laid out in the town center plan are consistent with the projects that are already in the transportation system plan. And so in general, from this group, we're just looking for confirmation that those 2 projects that are consistent and align with what we want to be describing for the location. And then the other category is inconsistent. So those ones will have yellow on the slide. And that means that the town center plan and the transportation system plans projects are inconsistent. And so the first location that I'll be showing after this slide, in the town center plan, there is plans for a recommended multi-use path along with 2 lanes for cars to drive. And in the transportation system plan, it's a bike lane and potential for widening to 3 lanes. And so those 2 cross sections of the roadway are obviously pretty different. And so those are the types of projects that we are going to want input from this group on considering those 2 alternatives and deciding what will end up going into the amendment for the transportation system plan. And then the last category is not addressed. And so the town center plan has some new projects for locations that aren't discussed in the transportation system plan. And so at those locations, we just want confirmation that we want to move forward with the projects that are in the town center plan and how they are described in the amendment for the transportation system plan. And so I think those 3 categories will make a little bit more sense once we're going through each of the corridors and sites. So I'll get started with the first one right after describing to you as a reminder what the corridors are. And so I believe you've already seen these corridors in the town center plan. There are 8 of them. A couple of them are shown as new connections, and then the other ones are modifications to existing roadways. And so the first one is Corridor A. And so Corridor A is Halsey Street within the town center district, and a portion of the historic Columbia River Highway. And then it is currently owned and maintained by Multnomah County. So as Matt mentioned, any changes on this roadway are going to have to be approved by the county. And so we're definitely getting their input on it as well. And today, as you can see, it is primarily a 2-lane road with shoulders and has on-street parking in a bike lane and sidewalks along some of the segments as well. And then some of the segments include frontage that is designed to accommodate a potential 3-laned cross section. And so you can see the town center plan has identified this potential to have the 2 lanes, parking lane, separation from the roadway, and then a multi-use path for people to walk and bike on, and then another kind of buffer from the right of way. And so I'll just start and say the town center plan, says install a continuous off-street bike ped path. It does not mention widening the road to 3 lanes, and Heidi, I'll call on you right after describing the rest of this corridor. And then in the transportation system plan, there's a project to install sidewalks on both sides of Halsey Street to widen to 3 lanes from 238th Avenue to historic Columbia River Highway, including sidewalks and bike lanes, and identifying that there are already bike lanes on a portion of the corridor. And then to coordinate with TriMet and Multnomah County to implement transit signal priority on Halsey Street, 257th Avenue and Stark Street, And so with this 2022 Transportation System Plan Amendment, you can see that the projects are yellow and inconsistent with the town center plan. And so with this group, we want to think about confirming the preferred cross-section and the approach to providing facilities for people to walk, bike, and take transit on Halsey Street, and amend the TSP as necessary. And so with that, I'll let Heidi ask her question.
Thanks. And just FYI, I don't believe we have chat function in our webinars. And also, I wanted to, are we doing kind of an overview, or can I ask nitty gritty questions? Like, I wanted, when can I ask those questions?
Let's give it a shot. Ask your
Okay.
nitty gritty question. Yeah.
Okay, so for one thing, you should know I'm a planning student. And so I understand all the acronyms and the and the lingo, but I do wonder if everyone knows what that when you were, and actually last week I learned how to draw a cross section. So this is very exciting for me. But I don't know if everyone knows what a cross section is. So it might be really helpful if you kind of explain that. And but just in terms of that, I was looking at it, and I think, as my opinion as a Troutdale resident, I think having a bike and ped on both sides of Halsey would be amazing. And I'm confused by the part on the map, and I can't see it. So, but like the part where you there, thank you. Okay, so, all right. So the cross section is the thing underneath with the icons, the picture, the existing, and the thing underneath it is proposed. Okay, so the gray car is parked, and then you've got 8 feet of green, and then you've got 12 feet of bike and ped dedicated pathway, and then you've got 8 feet of something else. Can you tell me what those 8 feet of something else are?
Yeah, great question. And thanks, for the reminder to describe what a cross section is. It's really just what are those items that are fitting into the area that is used for transportation. And so the green is like, as you can see in this photo, we have like a 9 feet of grass and trees. And this kind of area is called a frontage zone, and it really protects people who are walking on the sidewalk from the people who are driving on the roadway, and it makes for a more comfortable, enjoyable, pretty walk. And so you have that on both the side by the road, and then you also have that separation from like the fence line and where people's properties are starting. And so it's really just kind of a separation from different elements of transportation. Yeah.
And so that 10 foot that you denote there, is that the setback, the property owner setback?
I believe so. Matt, if you want to.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. And I don't know if I don't remember if Chris Damjan is on the phone or if Melissa knows a little bit about this, but my understanding is Halsey Street has a fairly consistent 100-foot wide right of way. And so there's which is pretty wide considering
Yeah.
it's a 2-lane facility. And that even the long-term vision for it is to just have like a shared path on one side. So I don't know if the long-term plan would be to maybe vacate some of that right away or just try to maintain it to some extent. But that's essentially what you're seeing. Those big green swaths on both sides are really showing that. So even the 10 feet that's shown in the picture, there's nothing shown on the other side, but there is quite a bit of space along that whole corridor.
It's public right away.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Last question, and I'll stop. But that if you're parked right next to the traffic lane, is there enough room to open your door and not get doored as people fly down Halsey like 20 miles over the speed limit? Is that?
Do you mean like if you were to opening the door into the bike lane?
No, no, I'm less worried about the bikes than the cars. Like in the proposed drawing, you have.
Yeah.
I can't remember how wide a car is. So does that give you enough room to open it without dying? I'm not sure.
I can take a stab at that one too, Amy. It is 9 feet is pretty wide for a parallel parking. It's usually normally you would see it be 8 feet or even 7 feet in some cases. Cars are generally a little bit more than 6 feet wide, just depending on the type of vehicle. Some larger trucks with dual rear tires and really wide rear view mirrors might need something more like 9 or even 10 feet. But for the most part, yes, like something like 9 feet would be sufficient for you to be able to get in and out of your car. I don't know that I would, this particular cross section, what's sort of unique about it is that I think it's depicting one or maybe a few segments along Halsey Street. This is again something that we'd like to talk about a little bit more in our next memo and during our next meeting, is kind of get a little bit further into the details and what these might look like. I don't know that parking would be extended along the entire corridor. Last thing that I'd say is, and I wouldn't say this about any of the other ones, is that Halsey Street, is, in case folks aren't aware, is the city has been working with Fairview, Wood Village, and Multnomah County, as well as Oregon Department of Transportation, on a much larger visioning project for all of Halsey Street that will ultimately include this section as well. So we're a little bit ahead of them in terms of what we come up with. So what we come up with might be more guidance. And I see Melissa's got her hand up, so I'll stop talking. But this one will largely be determined by that larger corridor study. And you guys will, I'm sure you guys will be part of that too.
Matt, I wanted to prompt you just a little bit, and you touched on it just now with memo 2, but a lot of the plans and the ideas in the town center are really detailed. And as we move this into the transportation system plan, every one of these details, may not move exactly into the transportation system plan, exactly how it's written. And when it comes time to choose a project from the action plan and the transportation system plan, it might evolve a little bit more as it's time to implement it. So I wondered if you could say just a little bit about the level of detail that we're beholden to as we put it into the transportation system plan.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think this is probably relevant for a lot of these corridors that Amy's going to present on. Even the next one in particular is that the TSP tries to provide some basic guidelines of what the expectation is for every roadway. So Halsey Street, for example, I think you mentioned early on, and Heidi, I'm kind of talking to you directly. I think you mentioned early on that you would love to see bike and ped facilities on both sides of the roadway. So that's the kind of decision that we want to make at the TSP level, as opposed to something like parallel bike facilities or parallel shared use path on one side, shoulders, things like that. So the basic understanding of what we want to put on the roadway goes into the transportation system plan. We can provide more detail in there. We usually run into issues when we do, just because there's right-of-way constraints, built environment, just a variety of things. So we try to just stay at a relatively high level there. I see all kinds of hands going up, so I hope I'm not really throwing people off here. I'm not sure who was first.
David, go ahead.
Okay, so what you're wanting from us is from feedback on this cross section based on the town center plans profile.
I think, and Matt, you can let me know if you agree. I think from this meeting, we're looking for some initial thoughts on these corridors, but the next meeting is really going to focus on the alternatives analysis. And so for the yellow ones, we'll definitely be bringing up alternatives, since those are the ones that are inconsistent. And then for the ones that are consistent, we'll probably just look for, if everybody is sounding like they do like what's there now, we might not focus too much on alternatives for them. And then for the gray ones that are not addressed, we would also be looking at alternatives. So this isn't the last time you'll see any of these corridors, but yeah, definitely looking for some initial thoughts.
Yeah, I would agree completely, Amy. Just knowing that you guys are happy for us to move forward, looking at what's in the town center plan, looking at the cross section that's presented there, and doing some, presenting some considerations for you next time about these two different, the two different ways we're looking at it. And Amansa, hopefully I got your name right there.
Amasa?
Amasa, yeah, no problem. I just wondered if you could clarify what you mean by 3 lanes going, maybe go back to the photo. It looks, when you say 3 lanes, do you mean including the parking on the side, or I just see 2 lanes of traffic?
Yeah, great question. So the transportation system plan, as you can see, there's a wide area of kind of unused space that is included in what is owned under the public right of way. And so the transportation system plan did identify the potential to widen to 3 vehicle travel lanes and then still have, or potentially replace the parking. So I don't think it's that specific about how those 3 lanes would be produced. But the TSP shows 3 lanes to drive your car.
Okay, even though this photo doesn't necessarily show that, but that's another thought though. Okay.
That's right. It's kind of like what you have on Cherry Park Road, where there's a continuous lane down the middle that you can turn in and out of. That's what we mean by a 3-lane cross section.
Okay.
Heidi?
I would only vote for that if it was a dedicated bus lane. So we could have an express bus.
Great. I think with that, I'll move on to the next corridor. So that's corridor B, the historic Columbia River Highway Halsey neighborhood segment. And so this consists of West Columbia, historic Columbia River Highway within the town center district. It is also owned and maintained by Multnomah County. As you can see,
I want you to take your vitamins.
as you can see, it is a 2-lane cross section, one driving in each direction today, and it doesn't really have any shoulders or anything for people to really be able to comfortably walk and bike along the roadway. And so in the town center plan, it says there's a potential that this corridor could take on a heightened role in overall circulation patterns. And so this is really there, as you'll see with the opportunity sites, there's some potential for development in the area of this roadway segment. So for more businesses and housing and other types of projects to be built, which would require more people to be driving, walking, biking, busing there. So there's some potential that this cross section needs to be improved. And then the plan also says that the public improvement should be complementary of the development that is in that area, so that the types of transportation facilities that are provided are suited for the development that is in the area. And then the transportation system plan says that there should be sidewalks installed on both sides of the road, and then also installing the on-street bike lanes on both sides of the road. And so it could look like how historic Columbia River Highway looks today. And so our feeling is that the transportation system plan and the town center plan are consistent in this way, given that the roadway doesn't really have the curb separation, the bike lane for people to have a separate space to be biking, or sidewalks for people to be able to walk today. And so by doing those projects from the transportation system plan, you'd really be kind of completing what is available for people to use. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to chime in, but this one I think is a little bit more straightforward since there is some consistency.
And I'll just add to that this is an example of one of those ones that it has projects in the TSP. Those projects are described in such a way that I think that when the development does occur, you have some flexibility in how you implement. in terms of like the width of the bike lane, the type of the width and type of the buffer or landscape strip or whatever you want to choose there, the location width of the sidewalk as well. And I'm just looking over here on the corner going up and down West Historic Columbia River Highway, and it looks like there are currently some segments over there that have what could be the preferred cross section going forward with nice looking sidewalks and landscape strips with trees planted and things like that. So looks like some of this work is already underway.
And then corridor C is the historic Columbia River Highway segment as it passes in 257th and then goes to Depot Park. And it is also owned and maintained by Multnomah County. Today it is mostly 2 travel lanes for people to drive, bike lanes on either side, and then parking on both sides. And then also sidewalk on both sides. And so this is a potential cross-section shown in the town center plan. We will note that this is really for the section that's east of Buxton Road, so about like these 3.5 blocks. As you can see, the town center plan really has a whole list of ideas for this segment. It suggests reducing the travel lane for people to drive from 12 feet to 11 feet, which is not atypical at all for kind of the character of the roadway, a lower speed street. 11 feet is generally considered totally sufficient. And then removing the dedicated on-street bicycle lanes, having a parallel greenway on 2nd Street. So that's kind of a big piece. Right now there are bicycle facilities. The town center plan suggests using a parallel route for that. And then includes the bike ped bridge that would span 257th Drive to those bike facilities on 2nd Street, installing a 3-way stop intersection at Depot Park. And that one, there are some other alternatives we would want to talk about with this group. There's some potential for a mini roundabout, the 3-way stop control, or what else is in kind of that area. Extending the pedestrian bump out, so that's where if you ever see where the sidewalk kind of comes out and makes the crossing distance for you to walk across the street shorter, usually with parking next to it, so that it isn't really, it's a good use of space. And then, so that would be shortening crossing distances at some locations. Those types of bump outs have already really been installed in the town center area recently. And so this is just kind of continuing that effort. Increasing the sidewalk width where allowed, providing angled parking on one side of the street, and then establishing kind of dedicated loading and drop off zones along the corridor to help kind of facilitate those movements of people kind of being dropped off and picked up by other people driving, or by Uber, Lyft, rideshare, those types of things. And then the transportation system plan does have the curb extensions or bump out, so that's consistent. It shows improving the crossing conditions at 257th and Columbia River Highway with combined bike lane, turn lane, pavement markings and signs. It says to coordinate with TriMet to provide bus shelters at the stops that are located along the corridor. So it's like kind of a place where people can wait for the bus without, having to be rained on directly, and things like that. Makes it a little bit more comfortable. And then signage for historic Columbia River Highway and Buxton Road in coordination with 257th Avenue and historic Columbia River Highway. And so the 2022 amendment, there are some inconsistencies. The transportation system plan is not really suggesting that you remove the bike lanes and change to angled parking. So those are 2 kind of big pieces that are recommended. And so we'll really want to get confirmation from this group on what the preferred cross section would be. So would we want to have bike lanes on 2nd Street and keep them on this street, but that would not allow for parallel for angled parking? So is the angled parking a priority? Those types of questions are the things that we want to be thinking about with you all. And I'll pause if there's any questions for corridor C. Heidi?
I have a lot, but if anybody else will think about your questions while I talk. Okay, so I live at the corner where East Columbia River Highway turns and goes to go over to the Sandy River, so right at the base of this hill, and people drive like a bazillion miles an hour up there. If we had a stoplight or a roundabout at the train depot, would that potentially slow people down? Yes. Then I love it. Also, if you can put a roundabout there, you will be my heroes. That would be amazing. Because the light does sound boring, but yeah. What is the purpose of angled parking?
I can take a stab at that if you want, Amy. I think this would be one of those things that we would want to evaluate a little bit further as part of this next memo when we start looking at the changes between the two different cross sections. I think the goal, and I'm Chris has more history with this. Chris Demjan has more history with this plan and might know a little more where this came from. But what I suspect is that folks wanted to add some additional parking to the downtown and are thinking that the angled parking would actually increase the on-street parking capacity. I'm one of the other hats I wear from time to time at Kittleson is I do parking work, and can share. I'll try to keep my comments to a minimum, but what I would say is that there are definitely some trade-offs that you would need to consider here. Like providing angle parking, how much additional parking you're going to get from that, versus like maintaining the on-street bike lanes. Like trying to work the angled parking into the existing configuration of the roadway with the new curve extensions you have out there with just kind of the way that the blocks are set up. There's a lot that I think we need to vet a little bit further. And as we move again into our next memo and into the actual TSP amendments, I'm hoping that we can provide some more detail on some of these trade-offs. Really, again, what we're hoping to get from you guys tonight is marching orders on how we should proceed. So for this cross section, like all the other, not that there are a lot of other cross sections, but this particular set of changes versus some of the other ones, like, is there like, how do you feel about these changes? Are these the changes that we want to pursue? Do we want to evaluate any of this stuff any further?
So I have two things to suggest. I'm anxious about moving the bike lane up onto Second because it means climbing a hill. And I know that there are a lot of through bikers, and probably the people with the spandex are going to be just fine. But for the rest of us, like, it's kind of a deterrent. But if there's a really good reason to do it, then I'm not like strongly opposed. The other question is, I can't tell if this is widening the sidewalk. I know it right now, it would be it's challenging to navigate a wheelchair on our sidewalk in downtown, at least in a couple of spots. So that if there would be a way to make it more accessible, I would think that would be great. And the curb bulb outs are awesome because I have seen people with mobility challenges trying to cross the street, and it is, fairly long. And also, I think you should decrease the lanes to 10 feet instead of 11.
Great.
Diane?
Hello. I have a concern with Second Street as well. We're going to have a new restaurant at the old City Hall. And I'm not understanding where everybody's going to get to park. From the preliminary what they showed, it looks like it'd be quite popular. And so I'm concerned about that, taking away parking off Second Street. I've seen the angled parking in Bend, and I was on the town center committee, and we had a lot of town halls, and one of the biggest things at the town halls were, and it entered into our mission statement, was that small town feel. Angled parking to me looks like a newer concept. It doesn't look like Jacksonville, Oregon, which is a very old town, and they kept their look with their beautiful buildings. In Bend, when they had angled parking, you couldn't see the storefronts. So it kind of gave it a crowded, to me, it appeared a very crowded look. Also, we do have on the Halsey corridor and downtown, we do have beer trucks and other things. And so limiting the width of the lanes to me sounds a little, I love the hustle and bustle of us having this area where we could live, work, and play. And if we didn't travel to other areas, I like the restaurants that are there. So I don't want to make it more cumbersome for them to be able to receive their product. The bikes like to go on the historic highway. We have those 4 blocks or whatever that are picturesque. We have the beautiful view of the bluff, and then going through the archway, and then entering into the roundabout to the Sandy River and some historic sites. So a lot of the bikes like to stop at Celebrate Me Home to have coffee and pastry and use. They're kind enough to allow use of their restroom. We have good coffee now. We have Grateful Coffee and other opportunities. And the gal who owns Celebrate Me Home says she's had a lot of return business from these bicyclists that are in, that are professionals, they have nice bikes and such. I'm hoping families can use more electric bikes. We could get more bike friendly for families, but I don't see how that happens without a lot of electric bike use for our hills and such. So I'd still like to be accommodating to those visitors that like to go through the historic highway. And the drawing is really cute, but I'm just going to say that these pictures are hard for me to evaluate. I'm an artist, and it's still hard for me to picture if this is a big trade-off or if how our old road that we have it is sufficient. I'm just saying that. I'm not saying it's not a good plan, but I'm not sure what the trade-off is. So those are some of the things.
Thank you, Diane.
Thanks.
Great. I'll move to the next corridor. Corridor D. It's this historic Columbia River Highway, the East Side neighborhood segment over here. And so this extends from Depot Park to the Sandy River Bridge. And it is also owned and maintained by Multnomah County. Today it's primarily two travel lanes with on-street official bike lanes. And then there is a sidewalk on the west side of the roadway. However, there's not really sidewalk on the east side of the roadway. And then the town center plan suggests potential for a bus pullout area that could be located on the northwest portion of the corridor. And that would provide an area for tour buses, shuttles, and typical transit buses to load and unload people. And then there's also some potential to extend an off-road path into the segment. And then the real official locations of the off-road paths are not determined yet. And then also this plan suggests converting the overhead utilities to be underground utilities. The transportation system plan did not identify any walking, biking, or transit facility improvements along this segment. And so that's why this one is gray. And so what we're going to want to talk about with this group is whether we should amend the TSP to include these projects, if there's anything else we want to be considering for this area. And I will open it to questions and comments for this corridor.
Thanks. So where are you guys talking about the bus pullout area? I couldn't figure that out.
Yeah, I think it's over at just at the end on this side, I believe. Matt, if you want to
Yeah, it's up where Depot Park is today, I think is the idea. And Melissa, I'll put it back on you if we're wrong about that. But I think that's the vision for that area up there toward the north, right where the mini roundabout or three-way stop would be. There's a nice sketch in the town center plan that shows what that intersection, that whole area could look like, and also accommodating the bus turnaround. I think one of the goals here, and I think we talk about this somewhere in the plan, is to currently one of the bus lines comes down and turns around at the park down there at the bottom of the hill, and that can be a bit problematic for a variety of reasons. And so they were thinking in combination with like relatively low ridership down there, they were thinking that they could shorten up that bus line, have them turn around a little bit further up the hill.
I know we fought about it last time. When TriMet was here. We didn't fight about it. We just advocated to continue the bus line. But anyway, this is where I live. So I think probably a low priority for changing zone, but so like I have kids that ride bikes, and it is, as I said, people fly down this stretch. So anything you can do to slow them down, please God, slow them down. And I'm trying to think, I know that the person in this picture doesn't really want a whole lot of stuff going on in front of their house, which is fair. What about just like a raised curb to protect bikes from the road rather than building out a whole new bike lane? Like just a little something to protect bikes on the northbound lane, or actually both lanes. Just, I don't know, it would be really nice to have a little bit of protection because it is a through road. And if you're not a professional biker, it can be intimidating. As far as the sidewalk, it's probably fine, except for a couple places where the post boxes are that are impassable by wheelchair or if you're using a walker. So I don't know if you have any control over that, but that would be awesome. Thank you.
Great.
Diane?
Hi, I agree with Heidi that sidewalk is very thin. And I'm seeing more and more people coming from downtown, including staff for the city, and enjoying that walk, going past the museums and seeing all the green and seeing the Sandy River Gorge as they're going down that, going to the Sandy River. I don't believe that one little thin sidewalk does it justice as a with the visuals and the beauty and the nice pathway to get to a huge recreation district, which is the Glen Otto Park with all its acreage, and with the Sugar Pine Restaurant, that's a big draw as well. So I would like to see improvements. That corridor to me gets a little neglected. I do like the idea of the underground lines that was always in the plans decades ago, to continue that, and then somewhere down the line then it just got stalled. So the old street lighting, it'd be a nice continuation. I'm sad to see the bus stop there. I understand it doesn't have that much of an attendance on that bus to get all the way to Glen Otto Park, but again, the parking is very, I live on that road as well, and the parking is very, very difficult. So as we're seeing more apartments going up and different people of different incomes, and some people having cars and some people not, I really am not liking the idea of the bus not continuing to something that's spectacular within our town, which is Glen Otto Community Park, and the semi-glacier water that offers the awesome opportunity for people that come from Portland and Fairview and Wood Village and Gresham and other places. All the kids that have gone to the high school, Reynolds High School, they've all visited that area. And I think it's just kind of possibly short-sighted to think to not continue an inexpensive transportation mode to continue down to Glen Auto Park. And I know there's some obstacles. I'm hoping that we can just make it work. Just make a commitment to do so, whatever that might look like, and that would be my hope. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah, just one more comment about that area. That is an area that I frequent a lot with my family and walking. And one of the things that I've noticed that can be a safety issue is that sidewalk being so thin there. Is that typically if you're walking with your family and dogs and other people are coming, they will have to run across the street sometimes so that people don't run into each other. And then, as Heidi was saying, cars are flying up and down that area. And so I do see the potential for, as we get more pedestrians and people accessing those wonderful resources we have there and the trails coming down from the neighborhoods there, that we may have increased safety risks with people crossing back and forth because that sidewalk is so small.
Heidi?
Yeah, I agree with what both of those people just said. Also, I forgot to say that continuing the cool lighting would be amazing. However, I have naturally occurring affordable housing, and if you could prevent my being displaced, I would very much appreciate it. So I don't know if there's like landlord assistance. If her property rates go way up, then I would like to stay in my house. Also, Diane, there's no crosswalk across from you in front of Sugar Pine, is there?
There is. It's kind of, I don't know if the yellow lines are kind of dim, and I'm not sure if it goes right to their to like where they have a little walkway, which doesn't make any sense because once you take it, I think you're entering into their drive-through. So
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so it's like all areas, and even how to access the park when somebody does come to the park, and then all of a sudden you're in this big parking lot. It's like, where do you walk safe? Where do you walk safely? How do you get to go down the hill to go into the water? How do you just navigate that parking lot? So there's some opportunities for better pathways so other people can use it safely. Because right now, when I have my grandchildren, you just go through the parking lot.
Yeah, that's right. So Matt and Amy were talking about from Beaver Creek to the Sandy River.
Mm-hmm.
So where there's the pedestrian bridge, which is awesome, and then it just kind of dead ends in the parking lot, and you fend for yourself. So that would be great if there was a better throughway there.
Nicole, did you have a question?
I just actually kind of as a comment. First of all, I wanted to say I really like that idea of the underground utilities. I think that's fantastic. And my daughter is blind, and so whenever I see an opportunity to advocate for real sidewalk area, I like to take it, because having that little tiny strip of green grass just really doesn't cut it for people with disabilities. And again, as people are saying, as things are building, we're going to encounter more people with different disabilities, and they're going to need a safer, more stable place to walk and to go to and fro. So I think having a little more of a sidewalk and thinking about that for the future would be really good. Also, it would make the area look tidier. It does, whenever I drive that space, it does kind of seem forgotten. Like I often think it looks a little forgotten.
Definitely. Thank you all for sharing. I'll go on to the next corridor. Next corridor is Buxton Road. And so this is the segment of Buxton Road that travels within the town center district. It is also owned and maintained by Multnomah County. It's primarily 2-lane cross section with some wide shoulder, which is kind of area that's not quite technically the travel lane, but kind of extra space. And then curb tight sidewalks on both sides. I mean, there's no kind of landscape buffer between where people are walking and where people are driving, which kind of makes for a less pleasant walking experience, and less safe as well, because there's no separation between people who are walking and people who are driving. And then I just want to know that the Transportation System Plan does include a planned traffic signal at Buxton and the historic Columbia River Highway. And so that's kind of still in the plans. And so the 2020-2040 Town Center Plan does suggest this corridor could serve as an experimental street to encourage alternative transportation such as electric vehicles and electric powered bicycles or golf carts, which is kind of a new concept. And that's really to recognize that you can even see it from the photo, how steep this hill is for people who would want to bike up it. And then the Transportation System Plan suggests to reconfigure the crossing at Buxton Road and 7th Street for the Troutdale Elementary Safe Routes to School plan. It suggests installing bike lanes on Buxton Road, and then also does have that plan to signalize the intersection of the historic Columbia River Highway and Buxton Road. And so with the 2022 amendment, we want to, we think that these are consistent projects. The bike lanes would be able to be used by people in electric powered bicycles. Electric powered bicycles typically have a limit to be able to go only up to 20 miles an hour, which is how fast very athletic people biking can do without electric bikes. So typically those facilities are considered appropriate for both electric and non-electric bicycles. And then the Town Center Plan, the TSP doesn't really mention golf carts. And so that's kind of something that we want to talk about with this group, how much we want to be discussing golf carts, and just kind of considering if bike lanes are the only real change to the cross section that we would want to be constructing. So I'll open it up to start questions, or if Matt has a little bit more to chime in on.
Yeah, just a couple of really quick things. I'd say, I mean, you guys are well aware what the challenges are here. Is it the TSP identified bike lanes for this and a couple of crossing locations for folks, but really the problem is the grade is getting up and down the hill. So I think that the reason why this one might be shown as inconsistent between the two different plans is the Town Center Plan lays out some of these alternative travel modes, alternative ways of sort of getting up and down the hill that they'd like to explore for this. The golf carts, the electric bikes, all that kind of stuff are different options. We've done a little bit of exploring on our own and to see what types of options are available out there. And there's a pretty wide range of things, not a lot that are widely used anywhere. Probably the most widely used one that I've seen or I could point to would be some sort of an electric bicycle sharing type of situation. And then there's some other options that one of the other corridors we'll talk about here in a minute. I think that the TSP also thought that Sandy Avenue could be a potential alternative for this one to provide an indirect connection from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill. But Sandy also has some of its own topographical challenges. So really, like Amy said, we're really just looking for your interest in exploring different options on this corridor, what you think about some of the things that are in the Town Center Plan, and any other challenges you might see on the corridor.
It looks like Alexander has his hand up.
Hi. First of all, I've always been a fan of the golf cart idea. I think it's a great way for people to get in and around town without having to get to their car, and people who have disabilities or don't like to walk very much or can't could get back and forth through town, and it would possibly keep them here longer. Going back to the bus in Glen Otto Park, I suggested to the transportation people when they were here that it one of the, and I still like this idea even after thinking about it, that perhaps the bus could come down to Troutdale and make a loop, get on the freeway, get off at Lewis and Clark Park, add a stop there, and then add a stop at Glen Otto, and it would keep it out of the park and make a loop around the city, so that even if you wanted to go from Lewis and Clark Park just off the freeway into downtown Troutdale, you could just take the bus, and maybe that loop could be free from one part of Troutdale to the other part of Troutdale. So I like that idea. This problematic corner, which I've looked at as the steady flow of people, especially in the late afternoon, make that turn onto Buxton, it's really like a faucet. It seems to me that there are two separate issues here. And one is the steady flow of people into Buxton. It would be great if there was some other painless route to get those people up Buxton without having to go through a stop sign, a light, and then perhaps the people coming down Buxton could take that same route to get out to 257th and bypass East Historic Columbia River Highway completely, because the people come off 257th and go down 2 blocks on East Historic Columbia River Highway only to get to Buxton. They really want to get to Buxton. If there were a way to diagonally cut across some part of the turf or back streets to get them to Buxton, it would eliminate this corner almost completely. And then you would just have people going back and forth on East Columbia Highway. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Heidi?
I think people have suggested popping from under, is it Helen Althus Park out to 257th? Is that 2nd Street?
Yeah, I think you're gonna see here corridor F gets
Yeah.
right at what Alexander was mentioning.
So that, I mean, it scares me a little bit turning off of 257th because again, the flying, but I don't know, you guys will figure it out somehow. I was just wondering, is there any chance you could put a roundabout here?
I wonder if the topography would be too challenging. Typically roundabouts don't function too well with a leg that has a really steep grade. Just because people aren't really kind of coming to a full stop in general. And then building that circle is hard, and kind of making sure that the turns are made at good speeds. But I think if Matt has anything to add to that.
No, I only wish Travis was here to respond for that one. I don't know how he would feel about a roundabout right there, but I have a suspicion he would. He's a big advocate of the traffic signal, provides some coordination with the other signal. It keeps like a relatively small, it's like a tighter space right here. We could talk about that more. I have a suspicion that it might be a pretty quick thing to cut out of any alternatives there, just given the space constraints.
Yeah, but thanks for bringing it up. Yeah, I'll go into the next corridor. I think I don't see any other hands raised. So, and I think Melissa, I see that we're kind of getting close to the 8:30 time. My suggestion is that we just go ahead and finish the corridors and don't go into the sites, but looking for kind of your confirmation on how we should use the last little bit of the time we have slotted for our presentation.
I think that would be fine. We could go into more detail on those topics at the next meeting.
Great. So corridor F is that secondary access that kind of extends potentially along 4th Street and then meets out to kind of serve as a bypass for the 257th Historic Columbia River Highway. intersection. The city would likely be the ones to own and maintain this new road. However, they would need to coordinate with the county. And there are, a fair number of challenges with this connection. One of them being that this is the Public Works Department building, and kind of this little leg out connection would probably have some impacts to the configuration of their building. And then also just having another intersection so close to such a big intersection, especially if this one is like an unsignalized intersection onto a pretty busy road, that can be a little bit challenging as well. But still think about some of these potential opportunities to extend the roadway, could potentially relieve some of the congestion on 257th. And then it is not mentioned in the transportation system plan. So with this group, we'll want to think about, is this where the new connection would go? Do we want to pursue a new connection? And so with that, I will open it up to some thoughts. Obviously, this is kind of a big project. Alexander?
I don't have anything. I forgot to put down my hand.
Oh, sorry.
Forgot about the blood loss.
David?
Yeah, I've never felt real comfortable with this idea, but I see where if you open the mind, there has potential there. But for me, one of the big critical problems with it is the downhill slope of 257th. You would need a right turn lane off 257th added so you could decelerate to turn right onto this street. And I assume you would not be able to turn left coming upgrade from the historic highway unless you did put a full intersection. I saw it as a smaller road. I saw it as a access coming down the road if there was sufficient room to decelerate to turn in and avoid the historic highway, but not be accessible going up road. I'm not real keen about the whole intersection idea.
Great.
Amasa?
I'm just a little worried, about people flying down and possibly, car crashes with people turning out. And also if they did appropriately come out, that it would cause kind of a backup on 257th in that lane, which is, I drive it almost every day down to work. So, it's pretty curvy and it's hard sometimes to see that traffic is ahead of you. And I think it could kind of bog up there and create some traffic and then might not see it further up. So I would just be worried about accidents there.
Great comments. Thank you.
Yeah, I think this one would definitely need some further analysis. We'd want to see what kind of benefit that connection would have to traffic on, as Amy mentioned, at the intersection of 257th Historic Limby River Highway, as well as Buxton and Historic Limby River Highway. Being as close as it is, I think that they looked at other options like at Second and at Fourth and further up. There are not a lot of options. So really you're pretty limited between, as you guys all know really well, between Historic Limby River Highway and essentially, what is that, Cherry Park Road there? Those are really the only two places where you can connect with that whole area. So if you don't want to backtrack, you're taking that left and making a quick right on the Buxton to head up the hill. So again, that's really the idea. And I think either Alex or maybe it was David that said that in philosophy, it's a great idea. Provide another connection, relieve traffic, but in practice, it might be really challenging.
Now, Alexander, it looks like you do have your hand up now.
I have it up now. I have it up now, yes.
Yeah.
What's really strange to me is that from my limited empirical evidence, the people making the right onto Buxton from Columbia River Highway it doesn't seem like that traffic stops on Buxton, and they go up to the top of the hill and there's a light, and then there's, I guess it's Cherry Park that goes past the post office. If there was some way to push people up 257th to make the left on that road, which is Cherry Park, I believe, and go past the post office to the light at Buxton, it would eliminate traffic on Buxton. It seems like people are going past all of the opportunities at Buxton to go on to some of the developments beyond Buxton. And I'm not sure why they want to make the left and then the right onto Buxton, when it would really be easier to just go up the hill and make the left at the first light.
That's interesting.
This is Diane. I think what's happening, like if you're more south, like let's say Dairy Queen, and then you're headed down Buxton and you're approaching to take a left on Cherry Park, how that roadway is configured, you only have a spot to turn left. There's only a little space for like 2 cars. So it's not really conducive to allow more traffic flow per the light, to get a lot of people taking that Cherry Park left, where the neighborhood is already used to that being another kind of thoroughfare, versus like 4th Street, which is a really quiet, it's a really quiet street. But anyway, so I've always said that Cherry Park is underutilized.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, it is. And if you really have to take that little drive and then see what's going on there, trying to take a left to get to 257th heading north, and then to really get a grasp of there's an issue going on there for that to be hold more traffic.
Amasa?
I agree with Diane. So I would say there is quite a bit of traffic going up to 57th. So it's also busy. It's not like everybody's going, at least I don't feel like everybody's going Buxton and avoiding 257th, because it's quite busy itself. And I have the option to turn on Cherry Park, and I don't often, because Diane is correct that there's just a small area to turn. And it seems like the light is a bit long. And so I usually go up a little bit further before I turn. So I have a feeling they're going on Buxton if they're going on Troutdale Road, like towards the Stark Street Dairy Queen. Perhaps that's why. And if you were to do that, if you're going to keep going all the way up to the 7th, and you wanted to go, let's say, the Sweetbriar neighborhood, 257th going past like Reynolds High School, after that gets very busy. And sometimes at 5 o'clock, there can be a line almost back to the high school, not quite, but so it's probably, there's actually a lot less traffic going on Buxton, especially at that high commuting time. So I'm assuming maybe they're going to Sweetbriar or something.
I'll move on to the next corridor, which is Corridor G, Sandy Avenue. And so this corridor extends from Southeast Harlow Avenue near Troutdale Elementary School all the way to Northeast 3rd Avenue. This street is owned and maintained by the city, not the county. It's primarily 2-lane road, no shoulders, kind of for people to be able to pull over or anything. and a very narrow curb tight sidewalk on the east side, or on the west side, sorry. And another just kind of key point about this area is that there are erosion issues. So it's a kind of difficult, limited area with really a big kind of bluff drop off with high potential for erosion. And so the 2020-2040 Town Center Plan has the recommendation to consider converting the corridor to either a one-way access or closing it to car traffic altogether, with exceptions for emergency vehicles or during extreme weather events that may require still being able to use it. And so doing that would reduce wear and tear on the roads, and also provide a pretty safe way for people to walk and bike on just a dedicated space for people walking and biking, and to be able to move up and down Hungry Hill. The grade on Sandy Avenue is a little bit more shallow than some of the other kind of options to be able to travel that direction. It also provides a really pretty kind of path for people to look at. The 2014 TSP shows using shared roadway pavement marking. So that's the like 2 arrows with a bike on it that just indicates that people are biking in a shared space with people driving, and signs on 3rd Street and Sandy Avenue to kind of indicate the shared roadway situation. And so we've identified this as an inconsistent location. And so with a 2022 amendment, we're going to need to identify what that preferred access change is, and amend the TSP accordingly. So Heidi, I see your hands up.
It's just last year we reviewed the University of Oregon student, I believe traffic engineering students did a report on this road. And I don't know if you guys have gotten to see that yet. We never saw it after it was written. I don't know if at least I didn't. I don't know if anybody else did, Shelley. But we were kind of under the impression that this road was like, cars needed to stop driving on it all the time. So that's important to know. Also, Twyla lives there, so you should listen to her.
Yeah, I do have a vested interest, so to hold that, I do live right on this road, and there is just a lot of runoff. One of the things that since I have lived there that I've noticed is it's wonderful because families walk up and down it, there's bikes up and down it, but there's also incredible safety risk because it's very curvy and huge trucks just barrel down that, and kids are pushing up on the middle of the road on their skateboards and such. And so I do feel it's a matter of time before there's probably an incident on that road, with hopefully not a bad outcome. But there's just such a mix of people trying to get down the hill fast, but also people using that road for recreation. So I would support more signage, or, I love the idea of just having that, since the road probably, like you said, Heidi, at some point with all the erosion, it would be safest to maybe see what we could do to decrease some of that frequency of that pressure on it.
Okay.
One really quick, this is Diane. I was on the Town Center Committee, and I do not recall us advocating for closing it. I think we were very interested in the study because it seemed that it was more wanted to be used as a connector to the 40-mile loop, and we weren't sure if that was the driving force, and that and knowing that people do like to drive down that road, and it's not used very often. And but I do agree with Twyla that if it is our road, that we could maybe put a 20-mile-per-hour, because it has a great views, and then people do like to walk it. It's just when I drive, I prefer to drive along that road just because of the visuals. And I got a feeling some people use Buxton as well instead of 257, just as a calming effect for their drive as well. I have a feeling that that's why people sometimes prefer Buxton to 257 at times as well. But I agree that maybe 20-mile is like a heads up. This is not where you just jet down, because I think we're having that problem everywhere. We're having it near the river on the historic highway. a lot of people are just entertaining themselves by really quickly through Troutdale.
David?
Yeah, I'm an advocate for to a one-way corridor. As I understand the plan, or at least the discussion, the vehicles would use the inside lane, that is the lane next to the sidewalk, and the bikes could use, and walkers could use the outside lane. And I would actually prohibit anybody going downhill, particularly trucks. I think it's wackadoodle. So that's my idea.
Thank you. Great. Just finishing up taking this note. Great. And then the next corridor is corridor H. So this is a suggestion for 2 new connections. One is a kind of overpass for cars, and the other one is for like a bike ped bridge. And so these new connections would also likely be owned and maintained by the city. They provide a connection between downtown and what is called the confluence site in the town center plan. So just really a big urban renewal area that's expecting to have a lot of development. And so this is not a project that is included in the transportation system plan. It is identified in the town center plan. And then so the 2022 amendment would need to kind of confirm the location for the connections and then amend the TSP as necessary. So I'll open it to questions about these 2 connections or comments.
This is Diane. I was on the Urban Renewal Committee as well decades ago. I found the flyers the other day. And one of the things that the people were told for the full concept that they would get was a connector. And they were very concerned about Old Town being cut off from whatever would happen at the urban renewal area. At that time, they were anticipating that there would be, we promised them also use of the trail and to visit the Sandy River. So regardless if there's commercial or just more condo-ish that's going on at the urban renewal, that connector was a big factor in going door to door and having people buy into the concept to even start the urban renewal process. The town center had identified those connectors as very important. We did also talk about, I think it was at planning, that if there was a parking structure that that's always been in the concept, that maybe that was going to be, you have to pay to use it. And that way it would be some offset, because I know as we're looking at these, what we're prioritizing, there's budget constraints as well. And that might be a way to use it, because we understand with the bike corridor that's going to be all the way down the historic highway, that people are going to maybe want to be doing some parking in Troutdale, and then that's going to put maybe some more barriers to other businesses that are coming into town. So I know we need to share, but we're going to need to have in this current environment of being at the end of the metro area and needing our cars with the terrain, that just seems to be what it is for now, that we are vehicle dependent at this time.
Great, thank you. And Heidi?
Well, I think a bike ped overpass would be amazing, because right now you have to go all the way around and it's scary. So that would be great. I remember that conversation that Diane's talking about too. That was very important to feel connected, so that it wouldn't be cut off from the downtown. I was confused in the plan. is it an overpass for cars or is it just driving over the tracks with some kind of signal?
An overpass.
Oh, okay, that's probably safer. I almost wonder if it's enough, but it probably is. And then there would also be, I don't think I saw it, but I remember there being talk about cutting through the outlets too, to the URA site. Is that part of anybody's thinking?
Sorry, could you be more
Okay, so
specific?
you see the outlets on it's that big U on the left or backwards C.
Uh-huh.
So right now there's no connection between H and the C. And oh, see, there's another C. I didn't see the other C. But you know where the outlet mall is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Heidi, I think sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think what you're describing is in the transportation system plan. They do
Okay.
show a connection that from 257th, that what you're saying is that you go into the outlet mall, you go to the north, you go to the east, and then you come down and connect in there. So that's an existing connection or a planned connection as part of the transportation system plan.
Okay, great, cool.
Melissa, is this a polite nudge to move along?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just gonna, lovely comments, everybody. I'm gonna skip ahead just to the next steps. Like we mentioned, we didn't really have time to talk about these sites, but the corridors are really a big piece of the transportation aspect. And some of these sites are really captured within the corridors, as we were talking about, such as that conversion to that 3-leg intersection or roundabout. And so with that, the action items for you all is to review and provide comments on the first memo by next Wednesday. That memo has some information about electric vehicles, some information about the equity piece. And then what we've been covering today is really found in a table towards the end, 2 tables towards the end of the report. And so I think Melissa is going to be sharing this PowerPoint with you all. And so please kind of forward along any comments you have to Melissa, or I think if you have given them our emails as well, you can provide comments to us about the memos and or if you just have responses to this meeting and the content of this presentation. They're very highly related. So we welcome any feedback on that. Our next meeting is on May 4th, so we're looking forward to talking through alternatives with you all and getting a little bit more into the details of some of the items we've been discussing today. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Melissa because I know you guys have more to talk about and only 10 minutes left in your meeting.
Great, thank you, Amy. I'll give it to you, Chair Reynolds, if there's any more feedback people want to give right now.
So do we have any members of the public that want to comment on the transportation system plan? Any questions, any further questions from our committee members? Okay, I think we can close that topic.
I think Tanny.
Tanny?
Hey, good evening, everyone. First off, I want to thank you all for all the time that you put into this. It's a lot of work. I just want to make a couple of comments. I was on the town center plan, and you guys have got a number of people on the committee that are on the plan. And a couple of things. The committee, you're probably looking at all this wondering what some of the real priorities are. And I would just say from the committee standpoint, the number one thing was access to the URA property, the confluence site. If we had to pick one thing, that would probably be the one thing that I think would be the most important. A couple of other little comments I just wanted to make from listening in. You know, we're talking about what to do with Sandy Avenue. And, you know, Sandy Avenue, you're going to have to do something with it, but you think about some streets going to have to be an arterial going north to south. You got 257th, you got Buxton, you got Sandy Avenue. Those are really about the only ways to get up and down the hill. And there was some talk about Buxton being a alternative transportation place. And can you really do that if you're going to take out Sandy, you're just going to leave 257. Might get a little wonky. Just something to think about. And, you know, opportunity sites, we need to think about those. We need to prioritize them, because who's it an opportunity for? What is the work that we're trying to accomplish as a city? Some of it's redevelopment, some of it's investing in infrastructure, but we need to look at it and make sure that we have partners that are going to do something. Because it doesn't do any good if the city puts taxpayer money into it if we don't have developers that are going to go in there and build what we want. And I think that's enough rambling for me. I appreciate having the opportunity to speak, and thanks for letting us listen in tonight.
Thank you for being here, Tammy. Heidi?
Okay, so the only thing we didn't look at was the thing that is Diane's house. So I was curious about the park extending from Glen Otto to Depot, which would go through Diane's house. So I didn't know if I'm sure we're going to talk about it next time. And also I want to know what's going on with the trailer park, but we don't have to solve everything tonight.
Councilmember Kranz?
Hello, thank you. Just a quick moment on the Sandy Ave comment. I noticed that Tanny chimed in, so I was going to say that I think it would be very valuable to incorporate the residents that are adjacent to Sandy Avenue, as well as the school, Troutdale Elementary School. I live very close to Sandy Avenue, and I just would like to have that public input incorporated with the decision-making process. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. There are no further questions and comments. We'll move on to the next topic. At this point, actually, what I'd like to say is it's 9 o'clock. Y'all have been sitting here for a long time. Would anybody like a bottled water, or does anybody need a break? Real quick, everyone doing all right? All right, let's move on, Melissa.
Thanks, everybody. I'm going to sign off. We look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I start this topic?
Yes, we shall. Can we stop sharing screen here?
Oh,
No,
yes.
this is your screen. Gotcha. Really makes it hard to see when you're doing that. All right, so the next topic is the changes to the city council stipend. I would like to remind people it is 9 o'clock and we've been sitting here for 2 hours. We are not going to be able to finish discussions on this topic tonight. I do not believe. I believe it will need to be continued to the next meeting. But what I would like to accomplish tonight is have the members of our public, including the city council members, state their piece and give us food for thought to come back and discuss next agenda. Is
Yes.
is that acceptable? Committee members? Yep. All right, before we move forward, we may have a couple committee members that need to recuse themselves. Is everybody comfortable?
I'm very comfortable. I have my own opinion, and it's probably different than my husband's as well. And I'm an individual, and I can think on my own.
Okay, Amasa?
Yes, I have a conflict of interest as well, that my husband is a council member as well. So I can just listen in and let you guys form your own opinions.
Perfect. If we could ask that you please shut off your camera. While you're listening, that would be lovely. Thank Victoria.
I was wondering when the city council wanted this back, did they want this into possibly the budget, which will be in April?
When in April?
Our first meeting is April 18th for the budget committee. I don't know.
So we'll need to conclude for April, the April 1st, the big first week of April meeting.
Yeah.
We'll need to vote on this. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I don't know when they wanted it back. It didn't say.
Well, I don't think we're going to be able to come to a vote on it tonight, because I believe it's going to require some conversation with people appearing tonight and possibly some considerations of what's being said. But the goal will be to vote on it the first meeting in April, the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting in April, so that if it does pass, the Budget Committee can consider it. Is that agreeable?
And Sandy has her hand up, maybe she knows.
Sandy?
Yeah, as I understood it from the conversation in council, that the money was already in the budget, because that was one of the things that was discussed is, why don't we let the budget committee take a shot at this? And they're like, well, it's already in the budget. It just hasn't necessarily done anything. So I'm not thumbs up or thumbs down, just FYI.
Thank you. Councilmember Kranz?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what Sandy had said, that I don't see this as a timeline urgency conversation. It is not something that needs to go in before the budget hearings in April.
Wonderful. That relieves a little bit of the stress off of us for this meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right. So I think what I'd like to do is open it up to public comment first. And if you could use your raised hand icon on your Zoom so that I can see who to call on, that would be lovely. Councilmember Glantz.
I was going to ask, am I considered public on this one?
You are.
Okay. Initially, I didn't come to this meeting to talk about that. I saw the email after I got here. I just wanted to say that the stipends are optional. Like when I started, they sent a form and asked if I wanted it. In my case, I said no, but I think that for some people having that stipend is important. So that's just my thought. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Kranz.
I had the similar kind of question or position as Sandy again, just sort of, I don't know if I'm doing this as an individual or a counselor. So I didn't know if you had a preference. I wasn't really planning to speak on it. I just kind of wanted to listen in. But I also can share my opinion if you'd like.
Committee members feel like it would be beneficial to understand the stance of our council members.
Yes, I think so.
I believe that we would like to hear what you have to say.
Okay. So I'm in my final year of term on city council. And so I am just so fortunate that the CAC is taking a review of this. And I just want to make it clear that I'm not seeking a raise personally. This was a mission or a agenda item that I had brought up for city council to review. And I felt very much more comfortable with the CAC reviewing it and just expanding the conversation beyond the counselors to see if just kind of get like a read of how people felt about it, because I feel as though the stipend could be something that could make it or break it for somebody in terms of their capacity to step into a leadership role such as city council. And so I just see it as an opportunity for Troutdale to advance some of the equity measures that are required to allow people to serve and to basically have the trade-off of their time. And I guess just to get a broader representation of Troutdale. And so that was why it was important for me to at least have this conversation. And, again, I'm not looking at this as an intended recipient of the stipend. I'm just asking the question, and I'm happy that you're having the discussion tonight. So that's my stance on it. So thank you all.
Councilmember Ritma.
Yes, I am completely opposed to quadrupling the stipend for counselors. And but I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what the stipend is. It is not an equity type issue and is being misunderstood. It was started in order to recompense counselors for their out-of-pocket expenses when they incur expenses as a counselor. They're supposed to, it used to be you had to submit your expenses and then you'd get reimbursed. If there's some equity issue involved in that, let's go back to that system where we submit our receipts or make a claim for mileage or whatever we do. And we should, people who volunteer to be on the council shouldn't suffer financial hardship. I totally agree with that. But the raising of equity issues or something like that on this stipend is a misunderstanding of it. The legislature, the Oregon legislature, is generously talking about raising their own salaries for equity reasons, because those are like jobs. We're not, in Troutdale, we have a volunteer council and volunteer committees. In fact, all of you on the CAC are volunteers. All of us on the council are volunteers. And it's worked well for 110 years. And I truly believe we get the best for our city by using volunteers. And I totally agree with reimbursing people who need reimbursed for their expenses. Totally, that's fine. But to just quadruple the council stipend, this is taxpayer money, folks. Let's not, anyway, I couldn't be more against it. I wasn't in favor of the stipend approach in the first place, but it was established apparently because there was a mayor who was abusing it or using it, overusing the refunding of expenses. And it was a way of kind of putting a lid on it. But anyway, I encourage the CAC to represent the citizens of Troutdale on this and suggest that we don't do this stipend increase. It is a misunderstanding of what the stipend is about. If it is for some reason favored, it should at least be referred to the voters. Anyway, that's my piece. Thank you.
Heidi?
Well, if anybody else from the public is here and would like to speak, I should prioritize that.
Yours is the only hand up.
All right. Well, I'd like to make a new proposal is that the council members get paid an actual wage. And I actually think, well, I read the proposal, and Troutdale is an anomaly in not paying their city council members and their mayors. And whether it's a stipend or if it's a reimbursement, change the language. But it is absolutely an equity issue. And it is not possible for anybody who doesn't make a lot of money to be on the city council or to be mayor. So it's ingenuous to claim that it's not an equity issue, in fact, because it's very clear that it is for anybody who actually works a lot. So I don't know how one proposes to put a new thing on the ballot that we have paid people representing us, but I am very aware that as a volunteer for this committee, I put in quite a few hours, and that the city council members put in a whole lot more than I do. And to claim that they don't deserve to be paid for their time just continues a policy where the same 5 people are on the council for 22 years, and there is no representation of the public. Thank you.
Councilmember Glanz?
Yeah, one of the reasons that I was in favor of the stipend, and I appreciate that it was intended originally as a way to help compensate for expenses, but I didn't want to get into any situation that would have the city paying money if it meant having PERS obligations. That's one of the things that's really, from a budget perspective, really tough. And I thought that having what I considered to be a modest increase would help cover some, basic hours if someone needed to be away from work or other expenses like that. In full disclosure, we do have an existing way to be reimbursed for things like babysitting. So that already exists. And again, I'm gonna have to fall on the equity side of this, that I think for some people, it really makes, a couple $100 makes a difference. So it doesn't for everyone, but for some people it does. And I appreciate that. And again, it's voluntary. If you don't need it, don't take it. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Ritma?
I just want to say, some of us have served many years on the council, and that's because we were elected. It's not because we're independently wealthy or something. We were elected and we volunteered. And anyway, I wouldn't change to a paid council. I think we get the best representation from volunteers and people who care about Troutdale. And I hope it isn't considered, well.
Thank you.
Somehow bad that I got reelected all these years. That's all.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other members of the public that would like to speak? Paul? Do we want to read that into the minutes? Melissa, do you want to?
Sure. We have written comment from Paul Wilcox, and I can read that. I have provided it in print here and emailed it out to the CAC, but so everybody can hear it tonight at the meeting, I will read it in. Just a moment.
Oh, Paul's got his hand raised. Maybe. He will.
Paul is here. I apologize.
Yes, he's here. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, thank you, Paul Wilcox, Troutdale. I would just encourage everyone to read my written opinion. You don't need to read it out loud unless there's somebody out there in Etherland that would be interested, but they could track it down online, I think. I agree with Councilor Ritma entirely. The stipend was intended to, or at least its latest version from 2010 was intended to reimburse expenses, which I think actually should be documented. To have $500 to $750 free spending money for the mayor to spend as he chooses. Nothing against the current mayor, any mayor in general. That's a fair amount of money, taxpayer money. So, like I said, I encourage you to read my statement, and Chris and his staff have links to all the documentation that I used to base my opinions on. There's the stipend was actually originated in '05 when Paul Tolliver was mayor, and it was revived. The counselors were added in 2010, and there's been some couple other revisions. Childcare was added just last year as an approved expense. But just read my statement, study it, and if you need additional info, look up the links to the all the hearings and the background information on the different ordinances that have preceded this.
Thank you, Paul. Heidi?
Perhaps there could be two categories, a stipend and a reimbursement, because you could show your receipts for your reimbursement. That's great. And a stipend to pay for some of your time, which is not going to be enough of your time, but it will be some of your time. So if it is not clear, I very much support expanding the stipend if that is the best we can do.
Right. Do we have any other members of the public that would like to speak?
Shelley, this is Diane. Were you keeping this to non-CAC members at this time?
Yeah.
Is that the intent?
That is the intent. I would like to please, let's keep the CAC discussion for the next agenda. All of our meetings are public. You're welcome to listen to them, but it might be a little bit more comfortable for our CAC members to speak freely without having council members here. If you don't mind, it would, I think, be in our best interest to have our discussion on the topic at the next agenda, if that is agreeable to the city council.
Shelley, I'm just gonna have to say I advocate for an open process. So I'm not sure. We heard some of the counselors, and that was appreciative by looking at all sorts of data, like the different cities and what their populations are, what their stipends are, why they have stipends, why do some cities not, the concept of volunteerism and like how we are volunteers as well, and the whole equity thing for anybody who does volunteer within the city of Troutdale, and just the whole holistic picture of it. This is a very interesting topic, and I look forward to bringing, having more time to look at this and accumulating more data. And I was even looking at the League of Cities and what their comments were. And this is just an intriguing topic to me as why. And there's also for people who want to look at this, really interesting concept is you might not be aware of that some cities have weak mayors, some have strong mayors, and some have city managers, and some, so that there's those things, as well as how some mayors are compensated and how different cities choose to have that set up. So there's just some interesting things to look at in this discussion. And I thank all the counselors, and I just do want to clarify that for now we do have 5 first-time counselors, and that was really cool. You know, just mixing it up was really nice. I do appreciate Mr. Ritmuz. I've been in this town 31 years, and there's some unseen things for how amazing this town is. His being an historical society and the arch, and there's all these weird little things that that people have contributed to this town. I've been going to council meetings for about 25 years when it was in the old city hall. And very, very interesting, and I applaud all those that have contributed to this amazing town to help make it what it is. And I really enjoy our CAC. So thank you, Shelley. I look forward to our next conversation.
Great. I just lost my battery, so if anybody is raising their hand, Melissa? Nope.
I do not see any hands raised.
All right. So staff communications.
Sure, I just had a few topics I wanted to update you on tonight. First, I was at the Amuktuk meeting today, which is the East Multnomah County, it's transportation. And there's two information sheets that they'd like to share with you. I have included them in the email to the CAC, some links, and I have printouts here. Metro is working on updating their RTP, their regional transportation plan now. There's a survey that is live now. The update is planned starting now and throughout 2023. So I have the link here and it's also on the email, but you can take a survey and please share this with other people around Troutdale that you can reach out to. There is also a tolling project for I-205, the southern portion of it is in the works now through ODOT, and they are also interested in our feedback and what we, if we have concerns here in Troutdale for our commuters, for example. So if we would like to give comment or feedback on the tolling project to ODOT, we are welcome to. I've included a link for their webpage about the project, and there's also a printed fact sheet here. That fact sheet was also linked in the email. Recently, we held an open house with parks. Our planning team helped out in hosting this. It was pretty sparsely attended, but we had some good longer conversations with some people that came, and we discussed the Riverfront Trail was one of the main projects that we talked about at that open house. We are planning to have an outreach table for CAC at the first Friday, May 4th, the first Friday, and at the first that should say July 15th there for Movie in the Park. I apologize. And the date has changed from what Marley initially told us. So July 15th is the Movie in the Park, and we will have a table at both of those. I will provide the table, I will provide the outreach materials, and I will be at First Friday and the Movie in the Park to help out, but it would be lovely to have CAC members as well attend, and you can talk directly about the TSP or some of the other projects that we are working on. I'll have some outreach supplies for you there, and I have a sign-up sheet here on this table, or you can just email me and I can put you in one of the volunteer slots. There'll be 2 CAC members at a time, so you'll have somebody with you, and yeah, so let me know if you'd like to participate in that. I want to keep you updated with Home Forward. They do have a meeting upcoming with their CAC. We are invited. That date is still not set. I will let you know when it is set, and you'll be welcome to attend with them. And just to summarize, for our next meeting, we'll continue the City Council Mayor stipend discussion and the advisory vote at that time. We also have a guest speaker coming, Rebecca Sanchez. She is the Equity and Inclusion Manager with Multnomah County, and she will be attending our meeting and presenting to us. Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, committee member comments. Could I bother you to put that on a grid so I can see everybody?
Yes, absolutely.
That'd be great. Thank you. Sorry, the meetings lasted so long, I lost my laptop, guys, so. Heidi, do you have anything tonight?
Probably said quite enough. Thank you all.
Thank you. How about you, David?
Are we going around? Talking about me?
We are. David Wheaton.
Well, I guess I just echo that, you know, if you look at our present council, it is a vast range of ages. It's split, I think, 3 women, 4 men. It has had its share of diversity over the years. Anyway, we've got a great council. I love working with them, even when I don't agree with them sometimes. So, anyway, thank you, CAC. You guys do a great job.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. David, can I have your comments for tonight?
Well, I was glad to be able to finally connect and get some sound, so that's good. Some of these discussions are somewhat deep, particularly on the transportation plan. I'd like to have an opportunity to ask some additional questions the next time. As a group, I think it would help us to understand, because I know we're, like, for example, we're redefined the scope, but there's no question about or timing on when the rest of the city gets updated in the transportation plan. And it would offend me to do one and not the other. So I'd like to get some follow-up on that the next time.
Okay. Victoria?
I just had a question. Sorry. Didn't TriMet say they're keeping the bus the same?
Yes.
Yes, that's right. For this year, TriMet is going to make no
Just
changes
this year.
to our lines in Troutdale. However, I think they may, again, in the future, will be involved again in the discussion. So we'll have an opportunity to discuss it before anything changes.
Amasa, welcome back.
No comment.
Thank you. Twyla?
Appreciate the presentations tonight and looking forward to our deeper discussion next time.
Alexander?
Even though they're not here anymore, I wanted to thank Amy and Matt for their presentation. And it was very, very illustrative. To get the information and look over it is like having someone put a bowl of stew in front of you, but the spoon is when we start to talk about it. So I don't actually start to taste it until we have a discussion about it. And so that was very instructive tonight. Thank you. I hope you all have a great month.
Thank you. Diane?
I am so sorry I missed the Parks Master Plan. I don't know how I missed it on my calendar. I did look online to try to see if I could find a copy of it, and I don't know how to navigate to get there. So I'd appreciate it if you could maybe email me that. And then the presentation that was today looked a lot different than our packet. And my mind, it just kind of confused me. It was hard for me to track. I was wondering if it's possible to get a copy of that PowerPoint presentation that we saw today as well.
She sent it.
Oh, you did. Thank you. And thank you for tonight's meeting.
And this is Shelley. City Council members, thank you so much for being here. I'm sorry if you feel like I rushed you through. I was actually worried about my laptop battery, but there you go. I do so appreciate your time, and I appreciate the time for the presentation from Matt and Amy. Tanny and Paul, thank you for being here. We, of course, welcome public discussion for our agenda next month. If you have anything else you would like to add to our agenda topics, Paul, we have your written comments, so we have those for consideration for our next discussion, and I think we're in good shape there. And Tanny, are you you're the budget, part of the budget committee, you and Victoria both, right?
Oh, that's correct, yes.
Yeah. Can you confirm that the funds that we are discussing are already in the budget?
Oh, I already wrote a note to do that.
Oh, good. Okay,
Yeah,
great. If we could confirm that by next meeting, that would be lovely.
be happy to do that for you.
All right, thank you. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Can I get a motion to adjourn our March 2nd, 2022 meeting?
A motion to adjourn.
May I have a second?
I second.
Wonderful. Meeting adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Happy March.
Good night, thank you.
Bye.